This content is not available in your country.
You have been disconnected, not found from the server.
Reconnect to your game. Access denied.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 23 of D1DLC. My name is Brad. With me is Jacob. What up? And we have some pretty special guests today. We are stupid excited about this.
If you haven't seen Brad, he's like almost jumping out of his chair.
So we have 2/3 of Team Cherry. We got Ari and William. How are you, gents?
Very well, thanks.
Yep, good. Ready to roll.
Beautiful. So let's start off with what you guys do at Team Cherry exactly. So what is your role on Hollow Knight?
Sure. Well, it's a bit murky, though technically my role is the animator and artist, and I'm Ari, by the way.
Yep, I'm William. I'm the designer, which is pretty vague. But
Bit,
yeah, I guess I make a lot of this stuff work. So enemy AI, making all the little bits and pieces and the characters' powers and things.
Yep.
Having said that, because there's only 3 of us, so we all sort of work.
It's a bit of an indie thing, isn't it? Like if you're an indie dev, you do like 27 different jobs, don't you?
Yeah,
that's
Ari's
right. Yeah, that 27 is.
That's the exact number.
Well, no, 27 is probably less than the real number.
Yeah.
But
Ari's he says he's the artist, but he sort of he does level design, game design, and everything like that as well.
And then William also has a background in animation, which he sometimes hides, and like Flash game design, a lot of that kind of stuff. So he's used to doing all of the art himself on previous games.
And we get to do voices as well. That's one of my
So
favorite bits.
really? all the voices are you guys in the game?
And not exclusively us. Most of them are just William somehow. But
So this is the
yeah, or like the little worms that are like stuff like that.
It's fantastic.
that sounds just like the game.
It's just my Pikmin impression.
don't sue us, Nintendo.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry.
So for people that haven't heard about what Hollow Knight is, which you should absolutely go and Google, or you can just check out our YouTube channel because there's a pretty amazing video.
It's an alright video. It's unfortunately done by Brad.
It is, but you know. How would you guys describe the game?
How would we describe it? Well, it's...
What's the tagline? It's a surreal, bug-infested adventure through something. It's like a 2D action platformer. That's like the way you sort of play it, but the big focus is on, I guess, exploring this kind of weird world that's like a kind of melancholy gothic world full of insects.
Yeah, strange friends and ancient heroes and epic, bizarre bosses.
The characters are fantastic in it.
Oh,
all
cheers.
the characters.
Cheers, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the word is, but they're obviously very unique characters, but they're very likable.
Cool. I think that the intent, we're trying to hit somewhere between creepy and cute. So
It's a little bit Tim Burton.
there's
That's
definitely
not
going to be a
bad,
connection to that.
Yeah.
With that gothic theme, sort of is very synonymous with.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the characters and stuff, because there was a particular character that you fixated on a little bit in the video, which was that worm sort of guy.
Oh yeah. Which I think we just got the sound. So in the first world, the first area, and you get the little worms that are hidden in the little jars.
Grubs, yeah.
Yeah, and you go back and then the big worm throws all the money and...
So you're saving all these little kids and stuff as well, and like you found him sort of crying in his nest or whatever. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? So you don't really hold hands or have like map markers and stuff or anything like that. I'm under that impression. So
Absolutely.
you have to explore and find this stuff out for yourself, which seemed like a really interesting aspect of the game itself as well.
Yeah, the stuff that we really enjoy in games is stuff like exploring, discovering surprises and things, and kind of working things out. So we've tried to include as much of that in the game as we can. So like you'll encounter characters and you don't really get what their deal is, and then later on like their story gets tied off in a way that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And things start to click and nice. Yeah.
I wonder how... That must be incredibly challenging as a games designer, trying to walk that line of difficulty between hand holding a player and then not giving them enough direction. How do you figure out when you've given too much or not enough direction?
We haven't figured that out yet. That's the next stage that we're moving on to.
I mean, we talked a bit about it before, but we've done a bit of testing, but we still haven't gotten to like the wider testing. So far it's just been our intuition and what we think will work,
which can be a bit skewed as well, because we have a long history with games of this sort. going back to the Nintendo original Metroid and things like that, which a lot of newer players and younger players don't really have the experience with. So we'll make decisions on the basis that players understand a lot of that stuff, but a lot of that stuff's actually been forgotten.
And so, do you, when you're making this game, thinking about a target audience, do you want it to be open to everyone, that whole generation, or are these are the kind of players we want? We want the players that do have that history, and we're not too fussed about missing out on some of the younger ones or less experienced.
Yeah, I think we like it to be pretty broad. I mean, we sort of found that. I mean, when we started making it, I kind of. And it was a smaller project. Our mindset was probably that it was aimed at people like ourselves who are kind of more familiar with the genre and everything. But as we sort of developed it and started to kind of show it off to a lot of people, a range of people, especially at stuff like AVCon or PAX, we kind of saw that it did, like, even just by the look of it in the world, had like a really kind of broad appeal. And we had like a really good range of people coming over and wanting to try it and really getting into it.
And then getting destroyed by the ultra difficulty.
Yeah, which was a bit harsh. So we're keen to kind of open it up a bit to and anyone who likes the look of the world and wants to kind of engage with it and like persist can get through and see the bulk of it.
I'm pretty happy about that because I kind of struggled.
I was going to say, you mentioned the designer sort of thing, so you were behind the AI for some of the enemies and stuff, and I remembered that Brad's having a few issues with one of the bosses in the demo that he's playing.
Is it the false knight?
Yeah, the false knight. I found him to be challenging. He gave me a bit of a whooping.
Yeah, I think...
I got him.
Depending on which version you played, I can't remember. You might be playing a more brutal version than he is now, or maybe not.
It is a little bit easier now. What I would say, just so it doesn't sound like a complete cop out that we've made it easier, is what we've done.
I don't think people mind when we make it easier.
Yeah, the core of the game is probably at a slightly more moderate difficulty, so more people can play it and enjoy it. If you head off the beaten path into the darker corners of the world, you will still encounter significant challenge.
Yep.
So you can sort of moderate your own difficulty, and then you'll get rewarded for taking on those harder foes.
Yeah, I mean, one of our goals currently is that, I mean, like I said, most people will be able to play through to the end, at least see the credits if they persevere. But if you're like us and you're really good at the game, or you're just kind of savvy with that type of game, then there's plenty of optional bosses and optional areas that I get to make it as hard as I want. Because I mean, this is stuff that's like almost just to kind of prove that you can do it.
Yep. Exploration is obviously a big part of the game. Like you've mentioned that a couple of times. How big is this game going to be?
Much bigger than where we originally intended it to be.
Let's go back a few steps. So you were successfully kickstarted in 2014, is that correct?
Yeah, December.
Right at the end.
Yeah, December 2014. Tell us a little bit about the process of going into the Kickstarter and then the success that you had at the Kickstarter and how that affected what we're going to see at the end product.
Sure. Well, it did affect it significantly, but how we went into it was 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. We had a product that we were working on as a sort of hobby game.
It started as like a game jam game. Well, actually it didn't, because we missed a game jam, like one of the Ludum Dares. Maybe?
Yeah, it was an event that we just liked the theme of, and the theme was beneath the surface, hence the underground kingdom of the game.
Nice, yeah.
But yeah, it expanded in our own time to a point where we thought this is of a decent size, and then we figured, well, why don't we pitch it to the community through Kickstarter to see if there's interest in it. We spent a few weeks preparing materials. We probably didn't prepare extensively, but part of it was that part of the reason that you put something on Kickstarter, if you're willing to, I suppose, is you're finding out, you're using it to gauge interest,
to see if people actually do want
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And then the success of it said to us, look, this is something worth pursuing, and this is something that people are interested in, and then that gives you the confidence to extend it into what it became.
Yeah, I mean, and suddenly, like during the Kickstarter, like Nintendo contacted us during the Kickstarter about releasing on the Wii U. So suddenly we've got the chance to release on console, which obviously it was a big leap from what we sort of imagined when we were first
I assume that
it.
must have been a bit of a moment to
be approached.
Was
not
that like a
have
phone call? Was it an email? Did you just...
email, Twitter, something
Yeah,
like that.
someone contacted us on Twitter and said it was like an employee, and he passed our details on to someone else who emailed us. Yeah. And then we had a phone call, I remember, with like a Nintendo of America during
Yeah. Which would have been probably was a great moment, but we're also very tired at that point.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I mean, yeah, there've been lots of moments like that, and they've all been really good. But sometimes it feels like you kind of have to like appreciate them more afterwards, because at the time you're like, you just kind of heads down working on stuff.
It probably also puts a little bit more pressure on you as well to deliver at some point in the future as well, if you've got these sort of Nintendo sort of people coming to you. But it's definitely going to be a big confidence builder for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about for you guys. This is Team Cherry's first game, is that correct?
It is.
Yep. Have you gentlemen done games together before? What's the history of Team Cherry, the people in Team Cherry?
So we actually knew each other a long time ago, but just as friends. And then a few years ago, we started doing some game jams, which were purely for fun.
Yeah, they had at the Adelaide Uni.
Yeah,
that's right. So there was a Jam-a-lade that organised them.
Yep.
And we did two of them in a row, maybe, and both of them turned out quite successfully. So the first game we made was actually called Hungry Night. And the sprite that is the character in Hollow Knight is identical to the one from that jam.
Oh, wow.
In fact, half of his animations are just ripped out of that game.
Yeah. And in that game, because the theme of the jam was 10 seconds, like 'cause in a game jam, you have to you get a theme, and then everyone has to build a game around that theme. And the idea was that you're a bug who has to eat cherries every 10 seconds or you die. So at the end of the first night, when we were leaving, they asked if we had a team name, and we just said Team Cherry off the top of our head. So that was the inception.
Stuck.
Nice.
So that is it. Yeah. So game jams are actually, that was really good because one, they're really high pressure. So you get this high intensity, super concentrated development cycle where you actually get a finished product at the end. So it's probably a decent testing ground to make sure you're not going to kill each other when you actually get into the crunch on.
Between the
That's
people.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. And make
Yeah,
sure
get a
someone's
flow
not gonna
happening.
Yeah.
collapse.
So there is a evolution to Hollow Knight then. Can people actually see this?
They can
yeah,
see a
find
limited
it doesn't
version
run
of it.
very well.
Yeah.
It's because we did it. It's actually output to Flash, so I chucked it up on Newgrounds.
Oh yeah.
So if you go to Newgrounds, which is like we don't know, it's like a Flash game website, which was really big when I was in high school. But if you search for Hungry Night,
Yep.
you'll find it, and you can try out the
Absolutely,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
the non-canon
we're all gonna go home
prequel
and do that
to
tonight.
Hollow Knight.
At a very low frame rate.
Yeah, I mean, when we were for a while, Hollow Knight was just called Hungry Night 2, and then after a while, we realized he didn't eat anything anymore. So we thought, we were like, well, what's the opposite? And he looks a bit empty, so we named him Hollow Knight,
Nice.
and then kind of the rest of the story just kind of spread out from there.
All right. Speaking of the story, then the game, having played it, it looks like and it feels like that there is a big story behind everything that's happened there. Is there? Or have you just chucked in, look, this would be cool, and then we will make it work? Because this is something that always intrigues me, and I listen to people like those that work at Blizzard when they talk about World of Warcraft, and they make game decisions and then make those decisions work from a lore point of view. Is that how it works for you?
Yeah, it happens both ways.
Yeah,
So there is a narrative thread that we consider, and it's general. It's sort of, we have a kind of a general idea, and then as you're building, you start to kind of crystallize each of those ideas, and each bit solidifies, new things get added in. So like you're saying, like a character comes in that we think is an interesting character, then we find a way for them to get integrated. Specifically, even one thing we offered through the Kickstarter was backers could get characters, ghosts that the player could actually fight into the world. And part of what we really wanted to do with those characters was make sure that they really integrate so their narrative fits within the world of Hollow Knight, and it doesn't feel like suddenly you're fighting an additional bit of content that is just coming in because a backer has paid some money to be involved.
yeah.
So with those, are they named for the backers in some way? Do the backers get to have a name for them, or
yeah, they gave him names. And optionally, actually, there is an option, so you can actually see the creator's name as well underneath their created character's name.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah,
pretty cool.
That's
see
awesome.
that.
That would be
Yeah.
really good.
I'm so
actually.
disappointed I
I didn't get on it backstage. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Oh,
There'll be another
devastating.
one at some point.
So, speaking of the Kickstarter, that was obviously successful. When we say it was obviously successful, is wildly successful an appropriate word to chuck in there, or how did it go? Did you have to go the stretch goal?
You did pretty well for how we pitched
Relative to what we pitched, it probably was wildly successful, but we didn't pitch a $1 million product like some other games are, or even $100,000 product. This was a smaller scale game. The one thing the wild success did do is pushed us into a new engine, which is Unity, which is like a well-known game development engine.
We were just talking about that Unity
Yes,
engine
we
just
were.
before.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
So what that did for it was really change the scope and the scale of the product. Partially just because suddenly we had the space, we had an engine that would allow us to scale up.
Yep.
Whereas the old one we were using, which was Stencil, which is similar to a game maker, smaller scale sort of engine, had some limits on just how big the scope of the product could be.
Yep. I did ask this before, but I'm not sure if I got the answer. How long is it going to take me to finish this game?
We don't know.
Assuming that I'm a moderately bad player.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like we're. I guess it's really hard to kind of judge how long it takes people to play through. I mean, because when we released the beta version, which is the version you played, we were sort of worried that we thought it would be like maybe between 15 and 45 minutes of gameplay until we actually got someone to play it, and then we found out it was about like 2 hours.
15 minutes.
Yeah, that's how long it takes us to run through. And it's funny because
hacks.
well, William's right as well, though. We just have no perspective at all.
Yeah.
We can never know. And part of this major theme of exploration means that players spend a lot of time getting lost.
Yeah.
And we can never get lost because we're the ones building it, so we know exactly where to go. And it just means until we start handing it out, like we did with the beta, we're not really going to know how long it will take to play. We can say it's over 10 hours at
I was going to say exactly
Wow, nice.
11.5 hours for every
William.
player.
Exactly.
Very
Every single
confident.
player.
There you go.
Well, it's funny because
So
we
when
heard
we
it here
request
first.
refunds, if we don't...
because of the structure of the game as well, because like so much of it is optional, and there's so many different routes you can take through the game, and B, like it's a type of game, and we've been pretty conscious of this and trying to like facilitate it, that once you know it, like speed running it, you'll be able to tear through it. So that beta, which takes on average about 2 hours for people to go through, we've already had like a couple of people speed run it. One person did like all 4 of the bosses in 12 minutes, I think, which I didn't really think was possible.
Watching your head drop there.
Yeah, well, and it's crazy.
I was actually
like,
sitting here, he's saying like 2 hours. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was like at an hour 45. So
Yeah.
Smash that.
I got game.
But yeah, so I mean, if I think about like someone speed running to the end credits, I reckon under 2 hours you could do it. But if I think someone like playing through their first time, like really taking the time to kind of dig into it and checking everything out and getting lost, like you could get to like 12. I won't say any more. Because
I think he's being
might be
conservative,
overselling it.
but I won't put a figure
maybe
on
more
it.
than that. Yeah, I mean, we don't ever want to give a number that then people
And then
do
everyone's
like 2 hours under that, and they're like, "Wow, what a rip!"
So just so we can confirm, it's going to be at least 20 hours gameplay.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, it's a pretty vague answer. But
No. That, I mean,
yeah,
that's-
it'll vary a lot, and we think there's definitely a decent amount of stuff in there and it's a lot of it is stuff that people can kind of engage with as they like as well. So it's kind of you shape your own experience.
On some more of the mechanics of the game, you can see that there's some stuff going to be there when you play the version I play, but you don't know what it's going to be, how exactly it's going to work. So it looks like there's going to be a shop front of some kind. I saved the little dude who said he's not ready yet.
Yeah,
to start.
that was pretty cruel.
Yeah, I was like, I went back every time I killed a boss. I'm like, I'll go back up and I'll see if this dude's ready to sell me something yet.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's tragic.
And there's, right towards the end of a demo, you get a new power. So we're going to have RPG elements in the fact that I will get to equip different things. I'll get to choose branching powers, or will there just be straight power-ups?
There's kind of 2 kinds in the game. You do get that kind of, for anyone who's played it, like traditional Metroid style. As you go through the game, you unlock like spells or traversal abilities. You get like a wall jump and air dash, stuff like that. That opens up more of the game. There's also, on top of that, there is an equipment system. You get these items called charms, and each of the charms has its own special ability. But also has like a cost associated with it. So at the start, you might have 3 charm points, and you can equip one charm with 2 points, and so on. And they kind of range from stuff that's kind of useful but not that interesting, like a faster heal mechanic, to some pretty weird stuff we fit in. So stuff like you can give birth to like little bugs that have your face and they follow you around and attack enemies and stuff like that.
That's
so yeah,
cool.
It does get expanded after.
I'm using that one.
Cool and disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, that's 2 things that we kind of keep in mind as we make stuff. Is it cool?
Yeah.
And not disturbing.
Hopefully fun, but yeah.
Disturbing's more
That's the
important.
other.
Bit further
That's
down the
less interesting.
The big question that everyone is going to be asking you all the time is, when can we play this game?
We're going to give another vague answer, but soon, we should say.
Soon. That's,
So whatever you take that to mean.
My scale of soon is like tomorrow. Yeah, that's cool.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Soon-ish.
there you go. Yeah.
Soon-ish.
yeah, good say.
No, we've said it a few times, but we will commit to a date when we know that we can deliver on it, and before then, we don't want to go out there and put anything out.
When do you get to that stage when you know you can deliver? When's the point where you go, hey, we can now confidently say...
We'll know it when we hit it. But
yeah, I mean, this is our first game, so that is something that we're kind of working out as we go along.
Because obviously you've got the concern, like I can only assume, I just play games, I don't make games, but you build you've got the content laid out, you've got the mechanics, and it all seems like it works, but then, until 1,000 people play it, you don't know what's going to break, and do you have to go through that process first? Do you feel that, no, we've got to have it tested before we can commit to a date?
I think I would, yeah.
Yeah,
like pretty extensive player testing before we can, and then you probably, once you enter the final kind of cleanup, when you have like a surer idea, then we give a date.
yeah, one thing that a lot of independent titles of a similar scale to us do these days is announce the date, a release date that is very soon after they announce, so maybe within a month, or within a few weeks from when they've actually announced. So once you know when it's done and when you know it's going to be done, you're not going to sit on it for an extended period of time just to find a perfect window, something like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to getting the testing sort of cycle done for you guys, you're talking like thousands of potential players that may be coming in to test your product. What's the process that you guys are planning to go through for that phase? As in early access on Steam?
No,
or something like that,
not early access. That's something we've avoided, just because we think it dampens the excitement around a release.
Absolutely,
can work fantastically for certain types of games, ones that have constant additional content, so like roguelikes and things like that.
Competitive games and stuff like that.
Competitive
Yeah.
games,
exactly.
stuff that's really like a living, what do you call it, like a service, games as a service style thing.
Yep.
That's not really what we're making. We're trying to make a product that exists as a sole sort of
a standalone
thing. Exactly.
I can play it offline, perhaps.
You sure can.
That'd
You can,
be nice.
disconnect your internet and go for it.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Regarding testing.
Yeah, so probably not early access. So we'll just do rounds of internal testing first, and then we've got some contacts, and then we'll probably just start distributing just privately via Steam. And
Maybe open it up to your backers and stuff from the early.
We spoke about this a little bit before we started
We
recording, didn't? And the problem with actually doing that for your backers, because and that was my question to you.
You want to give them the end product, don't you? You don't.
Well, that's it. How would you feel as a backer if you got something that was broken?
Yeah, anything we give to our backers, it feels like it needs to be more of a product rather
Fair
than
enough. Yep.
We're enlisting you to play this
Broken thing.
crashy thing.
Yep.
So and to get it into like a decent enough level where we would want backers to play it, and then like organizing all of that is like a big chunk of time as well.
Yep,
sure.
So much of the game is about surprise
Yeah.
and discovery.
Do you want to ruin any of that?
And that's something that a lot of that stuff we really do want to keep under wraps, even for the backers, because we think that's why they're interested in the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, until we think it's presentable.
Yep. It's funny talking about that. Obviously, there's a pretty big game release tomorrow, being No Man's Sky, and there's been some stuff with that has been leaked, and some people have been playing it. And one of the messages consistently coming from the developers is, why would you, after all this time, watch these streams and play this game when the whole game is about exploring the world and seeing it for the first time? And it almost feels like you're saying the same thing. Why would you want to see the early version when you can enjoy the whole thing for yourself when it's complete?
Yeah, well, there's always an allure of spoilers of a mystery, right? Anything that's undiscovered. Certainly with No Man's Sky, that seems to have been affecting people a lot. Like, especially when the hype builds that high, people just can't resist the allure.
It's like a good level you can get to as well, where like if you spoil yourself just a little bit, you can like get your
yourself
hype
hyped up
going, but then
enough.
you have to like step back. It's pretty hard.
That's true. Well, something like No Man's Sky was always probably its issue was that it was very vague on, intentionally so, on what it actually was.
It still is.
But I mean that entices people more than anything. At least what we're presenting is. It's a fairly traditional genre, so people have a decent grasp on what it is that we're delivering.
Yeah, that's true.
Although it's very unique though as well. Like Hollow Knight is, I've said this to the other guys before. This game like blew me away when I played it. I absolutely loved it, and I'm not saying that because I've got the devs here. Like I absolutely love this game.
He's legitimately being honest because he's made all of us itch. Like we can't play the game.
Yeah, it's got so much good stuff going for it. And when you say it's sort of a traditional game, like it doesn't feel traditional to me at all. It feels like 5 or 6 traditional games mashed together.
That's
that's
really interesting.
pretty good.
That is exactly what we intended, actually.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes people kind of ask us like, what's the unique selling point of Hollow Knight? In one sentence, and it can be kind of hard to say because to us it's like there's a whole range of games we used to play and still play, like those old platforming and adventure games, and we've kind of taken what we like from all of those, and also like come up with a new world that we thought would be interesting to explore and kind of put it together. So it's kind of like
because it's a mash, it's very hard to boil that down to a single catchy line.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only marketing line we've got so far is that you might be able to turn into a slug at one point in the game.
I'm sold.
That's our unique
I
angle.
feel like you could do better, but sure,
It excites some
we've
people.
led that with that. It excites us.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone else, but
I'm sure there's someone else out there. Yeah.
You have just brought on someone to do some PR stuff with you. Do you have an expectation for how the game's going to go? Can you even think about that while you're making it?
No, it's a good question, but I think the answer is you can't really think about it. Or it's not beneficial to think about it. Mm-hmm. All you think about is, I'm trying to make a product that I think is good, or a story and a world that we think is as good as we can deliver. We keep doing that until it's done. Then we hand it out to people, and they can respond however they want.
And once it gets to that point, you've got no control over how it's received.
That's all we can do. I mean, anything could happen. Who knows? Someone could release something that looks exactly like Hollow Knight the day before, but you just work on the product. Yeah, you make it the best you can, and you try and be pragmatic about it and don't really think about things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, our goal is, I think we can hit it, but I mean, we'll see, is that we want to make it like a sustainable thing. So
that's true.
After Hollow Knight is done, I'm sure there'll be a long time that we're kind of supporting it for a while. But then after that, there's actually some other projects that we want to get started working on as well. So ideally, after Hollow Knight, Team Cherry will continue to put stuff out.
The gauge for success is Team Cherry making another game.
Yeah.
So if we make another game, then you can call us successful, and we'll call ourselves successful.
Yeah. Do you, even then? So when you talk about now, so how long have you guys been working on this game now? It would be
about 2 years, but probably 2.5 if you consider the prototype version that was
pre-Kickstarter. So I mean, after we had like you said, the Kickstarter December 2014, and like started on this proper version start of 2015 last year. But yeah, we're working on it for like 5-6 months, like the kind of. What was it going to be the original game, but I guess ended up being a prototype.
Okay, so maybe a bit less than 2.5, but yeah. Which is relative to other titles, other Metroidvania style titles, which is the genre. Games. Actually seems pretty good. A lot of them come out at about 4 or 5 years of development. So
you guys have been working on this full time for the last couple.
More than full time.
But yeah, I mean that's it. That's what we're working on.
It's such a passion that obviously has to go into it to be able to devote that much time over such a long period.
I don't really believe in passion as a driving force. You just do it. You don't get emotional about it, and that's it. As long as you enjoy what you're doing, as long as you're being challenged day to day,
Is that not passion?
I was going to say it's
well,
probably.
I think Ari has a
definition.
slightly
No,
different,
because I think passion. I think
definition.
passion is some sort of like, because I think about it that if I wasn't working on this game, if I was doing service animation, which I have been previously for other people, the approach is identical in every way. There's no difference. Like you have a
the amount of
professional
effort you put in.
you have a professional pride, you have a standard that you work to, and you just do it across everything. It doesn't matter whether it's your own product or not. It's a different challenge, certainly, and there's probably another level of exposure of your own, because it's all your own work. But
Because you got to have a sense of pride in what you're doing, though.
yeah,
to be able to-
no, you're absolutely right.
to
I mean,
deliver.
there's a huge sense of pride, but I think as a professional, you try and carry that same sense of pride into every single
Absolutely, and
thing that
it's
you
difficult to
produce.
do. I know one of the things we haven't made games, but hey, we made a YouTube clip once, and but
It was a great YouTube.
It was a
clip.
great YouTube clip. But, like, so even then, it's one of those things, to use that as an example, I look at myself on YouTube and I go, you look terrible, I hate I do this, I hate I do that, all these sorts of things. But then at the same time, you've got to step back and go, okay, from a critical point of view, what worked well, what didn't work well, and how can you make that better? Is it the same for you guys? Do you like, if you do a piece of art, do you go like, oh, I hate the way I do, I hate the, but then you can step back and go, oh no, critically, that's really, really good, and this is what I want in this particular part. Is that difficult?
We've gotten used to, it's not that hard. I mean, I guess when you just look at something and you think of it in terms of, what are the goals of this design, and am I hitting them? And you could be
Yeah, that's true. It sounds really clinical, but
No,
it
well, that's what I'm
almost
saying.
is the best way to work, because otherwise you're just having these emotional peaks and troughs, and you just burn
I
out.
still have them all the time.
Yeah, William can have them.
Yeah.
But
I think, I tend to be harder on the game than Ari does, but it can be hard because of the pace we work at as well. And like I'll spend like a month doing nothing but like making every enemy in the game, and as soon as I make it, I'd never see it again for like another 3 months, and you don't have time to kind of like come up for air and like take a week off and then come back with fresh eyes and look at what you've done and everything. So you're always kind of in the midst of it, which can make it tricky to sort of step back and see like the whole thing.
Get some perspective on what
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
generated so far.
It's not like I haven't been able to do that. We all have, and I guess when we get to certain milestones and stuff, and we're able to kind of like stop and like sit on the couch and play through for 3 or 4 hours, then you kind of get that payoff.
you also trust the you that existed before you turned into a work zombie that believed that it was a good product and believed the ideas that you were going to execute on were like worthwhile. You just keep holding on to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I remember because this is the first time I've worked on a game professionally. Like, it's always been for fun, and I've always had the leisure of taking as long as I want and taking breaks from it whenever I wanted to kind of have that fresh look at it. So when you're constantly working on something, it can be hard to even like realize, or sort of, how do you actually measure if something is fun? You're not stopping to test it, and you've just you spent like a month creating so much content, and you've not even had the chance to stop. And I mean, like Ari said to me at some point, you kind of have to trust your intuition, which is kind of that, that player that you are. And so I guess my point is like, what you kind of have to go by is this something that I would like to play myself if I was giving this to alternate universe.
Have you had the point at some stage where you've spent a period of time, a big chunk of time on something, and you've just ended up having to go, nope, we're just going to have to get rid of that?
No, we've been lucky actually in that we have like a handful of enemies, like a couple of rooms maybe we've gotten rid of. But I mean, I remember I raised the point like a while ago, so when Ari was like, man, with like we don't have a lot of time, and we've been working like really hard, and we're lucky that we've not kind of hit any like, man, this boss is just unsalvageable, we've got to get rid of it, or this area is just not fun.
That's true. We have one benefit, which is that we're like, we talked about this previously, but we're working from known touchstones, so known genres that have formulas that have previously been successful. So we have anchors. So we know people respond well to this Metroid style genre, and we like it ourselves, which is very, very different to the type of indie game, which is, say,
like experimental,
abstract, experimental. And I can certainly imagine that if you were undertaking a game like that, where the whole thing was based around a new idea or a new mechanic that no one had ever seen, then there's absolutely the chance that you could work on it for 6 months, then find out that it's no fun to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, going back, we sort of said before that it's like the game's a mishmash of, like, those old traditional ideas. And because of that, we kind of know that if we did hit a point where the game didn't seem fun, we would kind of know that the underlying idea was solid. It would just be like a problem of
Yeah, just
execution.
something wrong in the execution in that particular
Exactly.
area.
Yeah.
And if you tighten that up, you can salvage that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a safety net.
Yep. Nice. Nice. Probably a better question to ask you a month after the game's released than right now. But do you feel like when the game comes out that you put so long into, that you're making as a professional level for the first time, do you think it's going to be a case of, right, now we want to make something completely different? Or do you feel like you might go, okay, let's make that again but better and call it Hollow Knight 2? Do you have that sort of indication now, or are you just getting done what you've done?
William mentioned it, but one of the big things after release is that our focus remains on the product, so we have to support it beyond release, which means for a long time afterwards, our focus will still be Hollow Knight. You're right, though, there will be a point after that where Hollow Knight is done, and our thought probably is to move into something that is a bit different, but keeps some of the ideas that the company is probably founded around, which is exciting worlds, exploration, strange characters, the type of stuff that we love to build.
Yeah. In your spare time, what does Team Cherry play?
Spare time. I remember
Do you have
that.
any? Do you have any time
bit.
to play games anymore?
I have about 2 days a month at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
I played through. What did I play through? I played through Twilight Princess HD. That was good. I had fun with that.
Uh-huh.
And Fire Emblem. I slowly worked my way through the new one. That was cool.
Yeah, actually handhelds probably work because I have a decent bus ride.
Yep.
So I just finished a playthrough of Symphony of the Night, one of the Castlevania games.
One, yep.
Quite acclaimed, and a big touchstone for our game. Played through that Inside, which there was a lot of
nice.
there was a lot of
We haven't played it yet, but it's on our list.
Really interesting.
right, a lot of hyperbole around it.
Yeah.
Which
You going to tell me it's overblown?
I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say I played it.
Yep.
Let's
Did you
speak
like it?
volumes.
Did I like it? I quite liked their previous game, Limbo. I thought they're a very
Yes.
talented studio. Surprised they spent 5 years on a new game. Especially, it's impressive. It's very polished. Not a long experience. Love that it only took about 3.5 hours to finish. Need more of them.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
about what I can fit.
Yeah.
Plus, something that you can say you've finished that as well is kind of nice.
Yeah,
sometimes
well, I
to
have a
go,
bad
"I'm done."
system that once I start playing a game, I have to finish it.
Yep, clock it 100%.
So,
Not a problem I have.
yeah, I'm envious of that. Yeah, so that was quite nice. And that game Fury, which was a free PlayStation game this month. I don't know. if
Yeah,
you
I
guys-
saw that. actually.
F-U-R-I?
It is F-U-R-I.
Yeah.
So kind of a boss rush game.
Yep.
It's quite good. A lot of people say it's ridiculously hard, and it is challenging. But
Are you a Dark Souls man? Are you?
I think quite like Dark Souls.
Yep.
But
Wow.
I don't. It's just
Thanks so much, doesn't it?
not for you guys.
Well, one of us, Ado, likes to play that sort of level of difficulty and painful games, I suppose. But I like something a bit simpler and a bit more fun.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not huge on particularly difficult games anymore. I will.
It frustrates me more than anything else, and the controller
Yeah.
tends to go through the window
Yeah.
more often than not.
You know,
these days.
particularly when you're of my age, I grew up playing Battletoads, and I'm like, all you kids, these games aren't hard anymore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then the hard game actually comes out, and I'm like, no, this is actually pretty hard.
Yeah.
It damages my cred, mate. That's not good. No. All right. Anything else we need to talk about?
Don't think so.
No. Anything else you gents want to talk about that we haven't? hit
Love
on
to talk
today?
about Battletoads, but I think we'd run
Battletoads.
over long.
All right, here we go.
That's
Because
an entire
I don't know if
podcast
you've
on
noticed
its
this, but the media recently, because there was for about the last 6 months or maybe a year, there's been constant rumours that there's a new Battletoads being developed.
Yep.
But consistently, this is the media line: Battletoads was never good. Everyone says that, and it drives me up the wall because when Battletoads came out, it was great.
It was amazing.
People loved it.
It was one of my favourite games growing up. Absolutely loved it. It was brutally hard.
Yeah, absolutely it was. As
But it was a great game.
were
Every other game at the
80%
time.
of the games that came out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's almost like it's such an easy line to spout that it was never good,
Yeah.
but it is a complete distortion of history, and it annoys me to no end.
It's full of ideas. That's
Reviewed
one of the
very
things
well,
I really like about it.
Consistently.
think we got
Stuff going on.
a regular spot on a podcast for you, like
Yeah.
a soapbox or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we could work something out.
Battletoads soapbox every turn.
Yeah. So can I tell you, just off topic, just a little bit, one of the biggest travesties of D1DLC is Jake, who is only just a couple of years younger than I,
Yes.
grew up without a Nintendo in his house.
I know.
That is a legitimate travesty.
It is.
It is.
And Mum, if you're listening to this, go get me a Master System now. I mean, a
See,
Nintendo
even
now.
he's still brainwashed. He's
Because
still-
all I grew up with was a Master System, so yeah, that's all I had.
Absolute travesty. It's so every time we get a platformer to try out, Jake's like, nah, it's not really for me, because he didn't have a Nintendo. He
Yeah,
doesn't know what it is.
I am
No.
probably the worst. You were saying before about people potentially getting lost in Hollow Knight. I guarantee you I will be that tester, because I will get lost every single time.
Yeah.
I'm terrible.
Absolutely. Just on getting lost, the map is really cool in that too. You know, the crazy old dude gives you that map.
Yep.
That's fantastic. It actually
Thank you.
made me want to get out a pen and paper, which I don't know if that's your intent or not, but it made me, I wanted to start marking off so I could look at the map and then I could draw my own and I could like go, worm dude up here. And, you know, like, that's how I felt like I had to do it. It was really cool. I like that.
Yeah, we're sort of, because that was like a kind of a temp map system. We're working on the full map system now, and we kind of, we want to make it something that it's kind of it's like something that you have to engage with as well. Like it's not just like it points you over here. It's like a game in itself to kind of read the map, because reading the maps can
Is
be
it
kind
gonna?
of fun.
So is the final map system, when I open it up, is it gonna have like a "you are here" thing?
It's well, there's actually a charm you can buy that is like a compass charm. So you can
Yeah.
equip it, and then you get like a little "you are here" thing. But then it means you can equip fewer of the other charms. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like a
maybe.
trade-off.
Because at first it really frustrated me, but after using it for a while, I'm like, no, I like this. Not having I need to remember where I am.
That's
recognize sort of markers and stuff in the game.
Absolutely,
itself,
yeah.
instead
A
of on
lot of the players, a lot of the testers of that beta build also seem to experience that. And we noticed that with players, that once they are willing to engage with the map, then they really have a great time orienting themselves within it.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
hopefully we've got a good...
Yeah, and we've really
Middle
tried to
ground.
make, like, we put a lot of effort, because like we said, one of the focuses is the world, into making areas like distinct and having landmarks, and having like a good amount of like characters kind of dotted through them that all kind of help you to kind of map out the world in your mind.
And absolutely, that's what it had. It made me. I became incredibly familiar with the backgrounds, what each room was, because I had to look at that and then look at the map and go, hang on, I just went through, you know, was that area? I'll just nick back there and check if that's what that room looked like. And yeah, it really made me engage, really pay attention to everything that was happening in the world, which is really good.
Yeah, that's the aim. So I mean, Ari spends a lot of time doing like background stuff, because it's not so generic. There's like, you know, there's a lift area in the beta, and then underneath the lift area where you get the map, there's like an old like barrel storeroom. So there's kind of a bit of logic there. So when you see one area, you can kind of see, you know, where it's going to lead.
I like the big bug that you ride, like the little train system
stag,
thing.
yeah.
You get the bell, you ring, and it's pretty good. Where can people follow Team Cherry, follow Hollow Knight? Where can they go and check out what's happening with the game?
They can go to our website. They can go to teamcherry.com.au and find out about the development. So we regularly post updates on there. They can also go to hollowknight.com if they want specifically info about Hollow Knight, with a pretty kind of Hollow Knight themed graphic design around it.
Yeah, and on our site you can see links to like our Facebook and Twitter as well. So we keep them updated too, so you can follow along there.
Yep. There was a trailer came out maybe a month ago, was it? A little
Yep.
over a month ago. The Fearsome Foes.
That was a slightly older one. We had a subtler trailer recently, which
Was it
I
called?
can't remember the name of it. It was called Beneath and Beyond,
Yep.
and it's more of an
It's like
atmospheric
atmospheric,
style thing.
yeah.
Yep.
So there will be one more trailer, which we will drop when the release date is announced.
Yep.
And we'll probably make it a big flashy one with going through the features and whatnot of the game.
Nice. And there is at least one developer playthrough that I've seen as well, which is of the
That's
beta level that we
really
played?
old.
Yeah,
though.
it
I think that
is.
might be stencil, like the
No,
prototype.
I have a
isn't it?
feeling that might be the beta, the same
Yeah,
one
I think it is.
that you played.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Whoever
only a short
fought
one.
The Hollow Knight
yeah,
did it
yeah.
much better than I.
That's it, because
Yeah.
I killed the giant buzzer way too quickly and we had to re-record it.
Eventually, we'll do more of them. It's just that for now, we don't want to reveal and spoil too much of the game.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
all
it takes time.
And yeah, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, what we can do is me and Jake can come in and play it if you want, and just record it, and then we'll put it up for you. That's
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, done deal. Easy. All right. Thank you very much for giving up some of your very, very exclusive time while you're working on this and getting close to it. We are super excited about playing it. Even Jake's excited. And he
I am really excited. Yeah, I legitimately am. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to see some of my terrible attempts at playing this game, it is on YouTube, D1DLC on YouTube. I don't know if I put it in the montage of me dying to...
we should do a group.
There was about 7 in a row that I just died to the Hollow Knight.
Challenge extended. I will beat that.
All right. That's it for us. Thank you very much for listening, guys. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all that sort of stuff. We're on the website, d1dlc.com. We've got the YouTube channel, D1DLC, the Facebook and Twitter.
All the things.
All the things. And that's it. We're done. Say goodbye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
guys.
Cool. Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Well,
Thanks.